A wonderful book on Coach Darrell K. Royal called
Good afternoon, Dallas.
How you doing, Brent?
Oh, man, I'm A+.
What a great book.
Well, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun because, I got acquainted with all the Royals, and that was great for me to spend time with Edith and Mac and the Royal family. It was wonderful.
She's an amazing woman.
Mm-hmm.
No
Absolutely.
doubt about it. Indeed. Of course, we lost Coach back in 2012. About
Right.
this time of year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was November of 2012. That's exactly right. He was 88 years old.
And what a legend here in this state. I mean, Darrell K. Royal is synonymous with Texas, but he's actually has some mighty strong Oklahoma roots.
He really did, and but
much to the worriment of a lot of people in Texas, probably.
Well, I don't think it will, because Hollis, Oklahoma, is so far in the southwest corner of the state that he could walk to Texas, I think. He'd have to take a canoe to get across the river, but otherwise, I'm serious. It's so close. They did most of their shopping over in the Texas side, where the larger towns were.
And he grew up pretty tough. Lost his mother quite young, and was a tough time in our country anyway back in the 1920s.
It was the double whammy for everybody of the Depression and the Dust Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And in southwestern Oklahoma, as is the case in West Texas, it was a terrible time to try to hang on, and so many people, loaded up and went to California.
And then Coach went to school up there in Oklahoma and was involved with the great Bud Wilkinson, right?
That's true. A lot of people need to pick up Texas Caesar and just learn about the first 30 years of Darrell's life, because he had a great mentor in his high school football coach at Hollis High School. That fellow's name was Dean Wild. And he took Darrell under his wing because, Darrell just didn't have any family that was looking after him at all.
Right.
So he found people in the community that cared about him and looked after him and gave him something to eat once in a while, and that's how Darrell was raised, by the community in Hollis. And then after Coach Wild, it was Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma, and, Darrell was an All-American, 1949.
He played both ways, didn't he?
Everybody did, but Darrell was good at both ways. He was a defensive back and a halfback quarterback, and he punted the ball as good as anybody that's ever kicked one. He was a great punter.
And after his college career, he bounced around a little bit and landed here in Texas at UT.
Well, like all people that embrace the coaching profession, you really never unpack your suitcase. You just put it under the bed, because he was at North Carolina State for a little while, and then he got a job at Tulsa for a year or two. Then he went to Mississippi State.
Right.
He was down there as an assistant. From there, he took his first head coaching job in Edmonton, Canada, if you can believe that.
I'll be darned.
I asked Edith, I said, Edith, did you all actually pack up everything and go to Canada? And she said, we sure did. We packed up the car and headed to Canada. She said it was a real adventure.
Extra clothes.
Yeah, I said, well, I hope you took a sweater.
Now he and Edith were high school sweethearts.
They were indeed. He met her at a roller skating rink there in Hollis, but she didn't attend Hollis High School. She attended a rural high school in Gould, Oklahoma, Gould.
Oh.
And she's 2 years younger than Darrell. So, she's about 16 when they meet, and she's a knockout, because I've got a picture of her at that age in the book.
Well, I saw her about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I guess now. She was a knockout then as well.
That's exactly right. These people, Dallas, these people love people, and it shows. They have that unique ability that when you were around Darrell and now Edith, they made you feel like you're the most important person in the room.
Yes.
That's a talent.
That is a fact.
That's fairly rare. that they had it, and it's one of the many reasons why they were embraced when they showed up in Austin in 1957.
And they've made their impact here in this town, not only with of course, with the football program at UT, but also with their charitable work and work in recovery, all sorts of wonderful things they've done. Edith's got her name on a great place out here with Austin Recovery, a great rehabilitation center, and a ton of other things like that. They never said no to anybody.
Well, that's certainly true, and I found that out in the last couple of years doing research about how involved Edith in particular has been for many years, not just lately. And then, of course, lately she has the Darrell K. Royal Alzheimer's Fund at UT Southwestern that does research in Alzheimer's, which is obviously something that touches us all.
There was quite a show upstairs here from about a year and a half ago, I guess it was now, for the foundation at the ACL Live at the Moody Theater. It was just a stunning night. It was one of the nights I'll never forget.
Well, Edith just turned 90. I'm sure you know that. But I want to tie Willie into this. After they got acquainted in the 60s, and Willie began being able to make, at first, just a living recording and touring. And then, of course, his career exploded later with some of his great hits. But they remained friends, and there's one thing I want to mention, is that, and I've never met Willie. I've seen him perform, of course, like all Americans have. But he's a very intelligent fella, just like Darrell is.
You betcha.
Very intelligent. And these guys grew up in a hard scrabble background, both of them, but they're smart as wits. And they played a lot of chess together on the road.
Yep.
In the motor coach. And so they had a love of music, a love of people, and a love of chess.
Yep. And their association goes back, we were talking off the air right before we came on, back to the 1950s, 1957, I guess it was.
I'm sure it was very soon after Darrell arrived. Now, Darrell and Edith loved country music, and they loved movies. In other words, they just enjoyed the celebrity life, is what they did. They liked being in the company of people that were celebrities. And, of course, in Austin, Texas, if you want to hear music, you can go out 7 nights a week.
Oh, yeah.
So they didn't have any trouble finding somewhere to go.
And I believe Willie handed him a copy of The Party's Over. I think that might have been the first record, if my memory serves me right. And they were instant friends from then on.
One thing that a lot of people, Dallas, don't feel comfortable talking about is they both knew tragedy in their lives with their families, and it's hard to imagine that Darrell and Edith lost two of their 3 children before those two were 30.
Right.
Both in tragic accidents, and I know that Willie, along with a lot of other people, were right there to support them during those difficult times.
If my memory serves me right, he went over and had a long visit with Coach on that, and pulled the guitar out and sang "Healing Hands of Time."
That is exactly right. I've read that.
Which is that's my favorite Willie song to begin with, and in fact, we kicked the show off with it today.
I see. Well, that's serendipitous for both of us.
Yes, and they. What was on my mind when I knew you were coming on? So, but their belief in this town too, as well, has been magnificent. Between the two of them, I'd shudder to think of how much money they've raised for charitable causes here.
Well, that's true. They've had that golf tournament forever with Ben Crenshaw. Just a big golf outing and raised a ton of money, and those things are ongoing. I mean, these charitable events take on a life of their own. I was going to mention, Dallas, if I might, in the short time that we have, that to me the pivotal year for Darrell was 1963. Up until that time, the University of Texas had never won a national championship.
Well, that was a big deal and big time.
And you're going to find a lot of ink in my book, Texas Caesar, dealing with 63, because in October you had this crazy circumstance where you've got OU and Texas playing in the Cotton Bowl in October. OU is number 1. Texas is number 2.
Right behind them, yeah.
And, that's Tommy Nobis' group on the Texas side, and OU had Joe Don Looney and some other characters. And Texas put it on OU pretty good that day, and ascended to win the first national championship. 30 days later,
the whole world,
JFK is killed 2 miles from where the ball game was played. So it's just a crazy turn of events, and the reason JFK's assassination is so critical to Darrell's story is his whole world changed.
Sure.
You can just imagine having LBJ in the White House, and LBJ was calling Darrell a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because he just enjoyed him so much.
Mm-hmm. It was such a pivotal time for everything, and I think
exactly.
that's one of the things that I was enjoying in the book is that era around 1963 to just think about all the changes that were going on then at that time, and let alone changes everywhere else.
Well, that's right, and you had these unusual circumstances where Darrell has just won a national championship, the first ever, which changed his status in the state. He now is a legend.
If you can beat Oklahoma, you've had a successful season.
You beat Oklahoma, and Darrell was beating Oklahoma regularly. If you check the record, he was beating Bud regularly. But in any event, the point I'm making is that you had all of these influential supporters of the University of Texas that wanted to be in the company of Darrell and Edith at political events.
Right.
And there was a time when a few reporters suggested that Darrell would make a great governor. I don't know if you ever heard that or not.
No, I have not, but that he probably got elected pretty easily, I would imagine.
Who really knows, because it didn't appeal to him. But you had LBJ, and you had Conley and Frank Irwin, and people that were wielded a lot of power in those days.
Yep.
And they all loved Darrell because everybody loved Darrell. You know what I'm saying? In other words, politicians migrate to other successful people.
And he was a born leader, too, as well.
Born leader, yeah.
We're visiting with J. Brent Clark here on Willie's Roadhouse, author of a great book on Coach Darrell K. Royal called Texas Caesar. Let's get back to the late 60s on this thing. I noticed in the book there's a bit on the integration, I guess, of Texas football, which was a big thing as well.
It really was, Dallas. It's hard to underestimate the impact of the difficulty that many coaches faced in the 60s. After the Civil Rights Act of 1964, there was enormous, public pressure to deal with the matter of integrating college athletics. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't easy in the state of Texas. Texas was a Confederate state.
Exactly.
Texas had the most lopsided vote in support of slavery after South Carolina. You had this situation that Darrell understood was sensitive because, on the one hand, he had Frank Irwin, who was on the Board of Regents and was LBJ's, confidant,
right,
saying, "Now, Darrell, you will recruit African-American athletes." And then Darrell was hearing from people in the boardrooms of Houston and Dallas, "No, you're not. You're not going to do that. That's not what we're about down here." And it wasn't just Texas. It was A&M. It was Baylor. It was the Southwest Conference.
Sure.
So he had to walk a fine line for a decade. And then finally, what really tipped the balance was other schools beating Texas with black Texas players. You're talking about the Barry Switzer days at Oklahoma.
Exactly, of course, yes.
So that tipped the balance. Now the football devotees at UT said, "Well, we better do something."
We're losing a lot of great talent.
We're losing a lot of talent, and it really took Earl Campbell in 1974 to really put Texas on the map and made it a credible place for African American athletes to go.
Earl Campbell's an amazing man. Last time I saw him, he brought me sausage, which was wonderful. And he loves country music.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could just imagine after Darrell's great pro career and all, how much time he and Darrell spent just listening to country music.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about coaches, because this is where it gets interesting. His social life here in Texas, one of the greatest things he did were these, they called them red light parties, where they were just basically good old-fashioned guitar pulls like they used to have in Nashville.
Exactly.
And still do on occasion, not as often as they should, but that's another bone to pick. But you could go to a listening party at Coach's house, and it was stone silence to listen to these great songwriters like Willie, like Chris Christopherson.
Exactly.
Charlie Rich, Rita Coolidge would show up, Larry Gatlin, all these great writers. And Coach and Edith just loved this music and taught a lot of people how to properly listen to it.
Right. I would have loved to have been a fly on a wall during those days. I did have access, Dallas, to over 10,000 images from the family. That's a lot of pictures.
Oh.
They were on disc. They were scanned in and on disc. And I went through over 10,000 images. And so many I couldn't really use because I had limited numbers, that I could put in the book. But there were dozens and dozens of pictures taken in a hotel room with people just stacked up, sitting on the floor, sitting on the tables, standing up, and then some very well-known country and western music star picking and singing.
Now, these hotel suites, these would be like post-game things.
Post-game things, yeah, exactly.
After a game,
yeah,
Coach would want to relax, and and Edith would invite a bunch of people over and just have fun.
They'd be over at the Villa Capri, you remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or someplace like that, where people could, have something to drink and party.
Yeah. And just kick back and relax and listen to some great music.
Exactly.
And also, Coach, for those of you who are hardcore Willie Nelson and family fans, he's responsible, I believe, for having Mickey Raphael show up at one of these legendary jam sessions, and Willie put him to work on the spot.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
Still there today.
Yeah. I just have to tell you that I fell in love with all these people. And you got to understand that that's a little bit of a tricky thing to do when you're an Oklahoma guy with 2 degrees from OU.
Sure,
and you've sort of been raised to kind of have a certain amount of, shall we say, competitive spirit.
That's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
But, I came to Austin many times to see Edith and Mac. And
you had a son down here in school, too.
And I had a son in school down there, so I had a full house. And, I have to just tell you that Edith lives in a beautiful retirement facility. And I think about the second time I visited, I said, well, Edith, I appreciate your time. I've enjoyed our conversation. I'll go now. And she said, well, what are you going to do for dinner? And I said, well, I don't really know. I'm by myself. She said, well, let's go eat Mexican food.
Oh,
and so off we went. I mean, that's just how much fun she is.
They were such a giving couple. Edith, of course, still is, and they just love people.
That's right.
And people are drawn to that. When you love people as plainly and simply and honestly and wholeheartedly as they did, it rubs off, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The stories are too numerous to deal with on the radio about that people were in need. Some of them had addiction issues, and there was Darrell right there to help see these guys through.
Well, it probably goes back to his childhood where people looked out for him. I mean, you learn those kind of traits when you're the recipient of it.
That could be very well be true. Because, and here's one thing I'll observe about Darrell Royal. I spent time in Hollis, Oklahoma, and there's very few of his, age group still around.
Right.
But those that are have nothing but love and affection for him, and Edith too.
Right.
And that's pretty remarkable. Think about that. And his teammates at OU were very protective of Darrell. When I first started asking questions about his career at OU, they wanted to know where I was coming from on this. They wanted to know
exactly what's up. Yeah, I can imagine that's one of the biggest hurdles an author has to go through. Anyway.
Well, you have to earn people's trust. But what I'm telling you that's remarkable, Dallas, is that people were more forthcoming in Austin about their relationship with Darrell than the people in Oklahoma City, because people in Oklahoma City are sensitive to this matter of the competition, you see. And they go, well, now, we love Darrell. What are you up to? And I said, look, Darrell was a great All-American here. This is nothing but trying to just recount the facts. But I had to work at it.
And people are complicated. All of us are.
Yeah, that's right.
And, if people who care about you and love you will guard you.
Exactly, particularly when you're a little older and you're left largely with your memories.
And the thing is, the more they love you, the more they'll guard you. So. Brent,
right.
I can't thank you enough for visiting with us today. Where and how can folks get this book? Because this would be a perfect Christmas gift for about 50 people on my list.
Well, this book is a short read. It's about 160 pages, 45,000 words, and I kept it short on purpose because I thought, people that all I want to share with people is what they might not know,
Sure.
So the book can be found on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or initial J, BrentClark.com, and you can order it online, and they'll bring it to your house.
Right to your door. You can't beat that with a stick.
Can't beat that.
Brent, thank you so much for
You're
being
quite
with
welcome.
us today. J. Brent Clark, author of this great book, Texas Caesar, the biography of Coach Darrell K. Royal. Man, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today.
You bet,
and
Dallas.
Thanks for writing this great book. It's kept me grinning for the last couple of nights.
Well, you take care of yourself. We'll talk again sometime.
All righty, Park.
Okay.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
J. Brent Clark visiting with us on the phone here at Willie's Roadhouse.